how I like to start these conversations about individuals' journeys, and unfortunately, yours has been a little wild, right? And I'm interested to talk with with the graduating class of 2020, right? A member of that society. I think it's going to be just it's going to be so strange, man, looking back. And I just want to get, where's your headspace at? How's this year been for you and your classmates, and just overall, man? Has it been horrible? Has it been inspiring? Has it been, where are you at, like, mentally right now, and how's everything been this year?
Yeah, I mean, so back in March, the world took a turn. I think everyone remembers that pretty vividly. But for me and my peers, I'm a student in Aurora, Colorado. It was my senior year of high school. We were just getting to the point where it was supposed to be senioritis, and we were
Yeah.
supposed to like have the best time of our lives these next 2 months because we're almost done. And then suddenly school got canceled, and then like everyone was happy at first, and we are like, yeah, this is great.
Right.
Like,
Two
let's
weeks off.
2 weeks off, and then 2 weeks turned into 2 months, and then and then it turned into graduation on YouTube in May.
Mm,
So it was quite a really challenging time, I think, for our peers, just because we really didn't know what to expect. And at the same time, a lot of us were hearing back from colleges of like,
right.
yeah, this is where you're going to be going. But there was so much uncertainty, and it felt so irrelevant almost. Like this whole
Mm,
college thing is just like, the world is literally like burning right now. Like, why do we care about college? So everyone was so taken aback. We didn't know what to do. And I think, things calmed down a little bit. We all figured it out. We were really lucky here in Colorado. It's not as bad. The coronavirus wasn't as intense as some other states. So we actually got to do an in-person graduation in July. It was a really short ceremony. But we got to do something. And for me personally, my school decided to do all online, and I just really was like taking a look back, and I was like, the college experience for me is not about the academics or anything like that. It was really just the people and like learning from your peers. And I find that pretty hard to do on Zoom when you can't have
right.
that close connection. So I was just like, and we'll talk about this probably more, but I have a lot of social impact work I can be doing.
Right.
And the world is in such a weird spot right now that it just seems so relevant to be doing this work. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just gonna take a gap year. I deferred my admission, and I said, like, I will come back next year, and like whatever it is next year, that's fine. But for this year, it just didn't seem right to first go to school online, but just second, just like with the where the world was at right now, I just felt like, this is a great time to be continuing my work and giving it my full attention. And I think the world is allowing for that right now more than it
Yeah.
would otherwise.
Yeah.
So I just felt like it was a better decision. So yeah, I'm on a gap year. I do all of my nonprofit work
Yeah.
day in, day out. Work with some amazing team members, but it's been a fun journey. And I'm always thinking about like, oh my gosh, when I go to school next year, it's going to be like a year and a half since I've like taken a class, but what can you do?
So
So
wait, when are you gonna move? Are you going first? Tell everybody where you're gonna go for college, and are you gonna be moving there? Are you gonna do online for a little bit?
yes. So I'm going to be attending Harvard, hopefully next year. Actually, I will be, like, whatever they end up doing. I'm not going to be 2 years out
Yeah.
of school,
Right.
right?
Right.
So hopefully it's in person. The world's in a better place, and I'll be moving to Boston. And, they did welcome students on campus this year, but it's essentially all online school in your dorm room. So if
Mm.
like you really take a step back and look at that, that is a little bit like prison. So I was just like, that's not for me. But yeah, so I'll be moving to Boston next year, and hopefully it'll be an exciting journey. I mean, there's so much out there.
Do you see some of your other classmates or anything take the same route as far as the gap year?
So not directly in like my classes or any of my close friends, but through some of the scholarships I was awarded, like that network, I've seen a lot of
Mm-hmm.
students actually. I mean, in fact, Harvard, I think close to 20% of their class deferred their admission. So there's like a solid 400 or 500 kids who aren't going this year that would otherwise. So I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely increased this year. But for some of my other friends, it was just like, I don't know what I'm really going to do with all of that time. And it's not like a time you can really get a lot of internships. It's not like you can go to a shelter and volunteer. Like
Yeah.
there isn't that
Right.
much. So I think I was really, really lucky that I'm in a position where I do have an organization I can work with, and like
Yeah.
those terms are on kind of, because I'm in the founder position and because I'm the leader of it, like I can do a lot more than, because if I didn't have EEqual and I didn't have that work, I probably wouldn't be able to do
Right.
much, right? Like
Right.
there's no internship opportunities right
Yeah.
now. Like there's nothing out there. Everything's like almost closed still. So yeah, I think I'm in a really lucky place there.
So let's talk about EEqual, and let's talk about what's the purpose, what's the mission, why did you start it, what was the sort of moment where you decided to start it. I think it's always interesting when that light bulb goes off, but then it's also a real big decision in the person's life to actually act on it, right? And being so young,
Yes.
man, it's a really, really amazing decision that you made, right? And I want to
Thank
just
you.
understand the thought
Yeah.
process and kind of what was the turning point to really make it happen.
Yeah. So, in order to talk about EEqual, we have to talk a little bit more backstory
Sure.
about an older organization. So, I'll just start with the beginnings of the story where they all rooted from. So, when I was in 8th grade, a close friend of mine and we took a class. It was called Building a Better Community, and essentially, it was all about do something positive with your time. Like it's middle school. It's not like we have a lot on our plates, right? Like we were just middle schoolers. So the class was completely structured around just doing something positive. So I did a fundraiser for a local foster care shelter. My close friend did a fundraiser for an animal shelter, and we loved it. Like
Mm-hmm.
going around the school, collecting donations. We were kind of the kids that stood outside of grocery stores that everyone was like, oh my gosh, they're going to ask me for money again. And they like try to go through the other door. Like we noticed, but like we would just really excited to do something positive. And I think for me, it came from a place of my parents had always shown me the importance of service and giving back, but
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know when and where and how. And like, I wasn't in a position necessarily that I could go volunteer whenever I wanted. Like I couldn't drive to a shelter. I couldn't do any of that. So the fact that this class, it was really structured around like your own schedule and kind of like you have school time to work on it. Like it made it a lot more feasible. So I was like, yeah, I mean, this was great. And so really enjoyed that class. And so did she. And then she texted me like a month later and she's like, I had a lot of fun. And it seems like you had a lot of fun with our projects. Like, do you want to do a project together? And like, we could pass out or distribute some hygiene materials or meals or something to people experiencing homelessness, people out on the streets. Like that seemed to be an issue that we both were really interested in, but for some reason in that class they didn't allow us to work with that issue. I'm not exactly sure why. But so we were just like, it's on our own terms, we could do whatever. And we went ahead and was like, yeah, we're gonna do that. So we were 2 8th graders. We were like, we want to do this project. And we were talking to some teachers and it was like, we have to raise money. And then a couple months later, we realized if you want to raise money, most of the time you have to be like a tax exempt organization or something like that. So we were like, okay, what is that? So I want you to imagine like 2 8th graders
Right.
like in the lunchroom with like one of those small Chromebooks and like sitting with a printed paper from the IRS. I think it's called like the 1023. I don't remember, so
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah.
And like literally knew nothing. Like the questions we were Googling was like, what is the IRS? Like, what does all this stuff mean? And we didn't know how to file anything. And obviously, like, it's not like we had a bunch of money to go. Like, we could have just be like, let's go get an accountant to help us. There's like
Yeah.
someone who does this. So we kind of just were on our own. And I called the IRS multiple times and we're just like, help out. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they were probably really confused why an 8th grader is calling them. But we got it filed. So we decided to put it all together and we were going to call ourselves Helping the Homeless Colorado. And we filed. And then like 3 weeks later, we got the approval letter and we were like, oh my gosh, like we actually did it. So now we went out and gained some funding. We raised like $2,000, which was like a lot for us.
Yeah,
we were like
for
so
sure.
shook. Like, oh my gosh, we would stand outside of like the grocery store when someone would hand us $100. It was like, oh my gosh, the day just was made. So I mean, it was really, really organic like that. And then we just started collecting items. So we would go to like bakeries and be like, whatever food you have left over,
Yeah.
like we'll take it, we'll package it up into sandwiches. And we went and distributed. We did that every Saturday. My dad would drive us downtown. We would just go pass out things, and we did it so many times. Oh my gosh, probably for 8 months continuously every single Saturday. Like we would wake up 10 a.m., do the same thing. It was so much fun. And over time, I started to learn a lot. Like after going and passing out things, we would talk to people out on the streets and we'd be like, wow, these guys have really, really interesting stories. And homelessness is not necessarily what we thought it was. Like it's
Right.
not a lot. Like a lot of these people are just like me. Like they had the same origins and now they're in this position. So why? And then, we wanted to take the organization to the next level. So we continued to grow it. We added some new programs. We learned about this huge need of students in experiencing homelessness. So we were like, maybe we could create a scholarship. We started to learn more about donors and how to engage people and host more fundraisers that raised more than just $100. And it really, really started to grow. And then around the senior year of high school for me, we had distributed over 50,000 basic necessities. We had a team of over 25 teams
Wow.
working with us. We raised over $140,000
Wow.
over the years. We sent 5 students to college, homeless students. So it was really, really like an organic traction. Didn't know what we were doing exactly. It's not like we had a huge vision for where it was going, but it was more of like, we can help and this is another need. So we're going to help out.
Yeah.
So it was a huge success. And then it was after our second benefit gala, my senior year of high school, right around this time last year, we were just like, okay, what do we do now? Because Alyssa and I, my co-founder, we were going to be graduating. We didn't really have a structure in place. Like I was saying before, like we didn't really have like
You're just running on adrenaline and
yeah,
passion.
yeah, literally. Right. So we were just like, it doesn't seem like we can just pass this on to someone. Like there's so much they don't know yet. And we haven't taken the time to train everyone or whatever. And there was some like guilty part of myself. It's like, I really, really liked this work. And I don't want to stop this work, but something's not fitting. And what wasn't fitting it was like the elephant in the room where, some of helping the homeless Colorado's programs were great. Like the scholarship, educating people. It's like, perfect. We're making a real difference. And then things like passing out basic necessities, we had a little bit of trouble with because it is a great need to be filling. Like that, I'm not denying that it's a need that people out on the streets do need basic necessities. They do need a meal every now and then.
Yeah.
But really, really bugged us was the next morning, the same problem would exist. So essentially, we were band-aiding the problem. We weren't really offering a solution.
Right.
So we were thinking, okay, why don't we're a little all over the place. We don't have a target market. Like we don't have goals for the future. We also just don't want to do programs that local community groups are already doing. Like we already know hundreds of people packaging up sandwiches and doing that. So I don't know if that's the right program for a nonprofit. Maybe in 8th grade, it was great, but now maybe there's more we could do. So we started to do some research and really trying to focus in on students in poverty and homelessness. Like this is a group that we don't know much about and we don't talk much about. Like no one really knows what student poverty and homelessness, like that it even exists. And that's such a big problem. Like right here in Colorado, we have over 22,000 students experiencing homelessness, but no one talks about it because we don't really know. So we're just like, there's so many shelters out there. There's so many organizations working to support people out on the streets, but there's not a lot working to support students specifically who are struggling. And, sometimes students stay at homeless shelters. Sometimes they stay at a friend's house. Sometimes they're sleeping in their cars. Sometimes they're staying in like the lot of grocery stores. Like they are all over the place and not necessarily acting like the typical homeless population. So we're like, what if we created an organization that can first grow outside of Colorado? So it could be something we do for more time. But 2, it can really focus in on a specific group of people. And then 3, like really create effective programming around it that we're really, really making a difference and asking the population we're trying to serve about what they need help with. Because like, I think that's a big misconception in the nonprofit sector that we come in thinking that because we are trying to do something good, sometimes we forget to even ask the people we're trying to help, what do you need help with? like as 8th graders, we were like, well, if you're homeless, you need toilet paper. Yes, you do, but there's so much more to the problem, and taking the time to learn that is really, really critical. So that is where the idea of EEqual was born. And we spent 9 months doing everything from research to program development to recruiting a new team to really building the infrastructure. We launched it back in June, and Now I am here like on a
Okay.
gap year doing it full time. We're working on getting funders. We're piloting 2 of our programs this spring. I mean, it was a huge transformation. Really excited about where we're going. And that was a really, really long answer to your question.
I love
It
it,
was a
man.
long
Hey,
story.
I do the same thing, so I don't mind it at all. So, what were some of the? You mentioned that you actually sat down and talked, right, with people and got answers directly from them. So, what did you learn from that? What were some of the feedback that you got, and what were the needs that they were saying that they were needing?
Yeah. So what we really did is sat down with, okay. So the first big challenge when it comes to students in extreme poverty or homelessness is there's a huge challenge with self-identification. And what I mean by that is it is extremely embarrassing for someone to come forward and say, like, I don't have a place to stay and I can't afford this. I can't afford
Right.
that. So these students don't, and they don't communicate their troubles and they really just try and figure it out on their own, which is a really big challenge. And so what we did is like, as many students as we can find, some of our scholars from helping the homeless, like maybe we could talk to them. We started there.
Hmm.
But then we talked with the people they're working with the most, and that's their teachers. Like, if anyone knows, it's most likely their teachers because they're the ones coming up to them after class and saying, I can't do the homework tonight because of this, or I can't afford to go on this field trip, or I don't have a computer to finish this homework.
Right.
So we went to lower income school districts and we just interviewed teachers. Granted, we did all the primary research with the peer reviewed journals and all that. We got that covered, but
Yep.
there's something valuable at sitting there and talking to the people who are
Yeah.
directly interacting with this population instead of just reading all the research, right? So we just learning about the challenges that these students face with when it comes to, I'm sure everyone knows listening probably that like when a student comes home from school at the beginning of the year, there's like some $200-300 check that a parent has to write. Like it's like, oh, I need money for this, like this
Right.
book
Right.
we're gonna read, this field trip we're gonna go on, this fee. Like they just add up, right?
Sure.
But these students can't make that same ask because their parents don't have that kind of money, or sometimes their parents have no idea. Like we have students whose parents don't even speak English. Like they don't even know what to expect with all of this, let
Right.
alone they're working jobs that they can't fork up that money. So it's either you put food on the table or you pay rent or you go on the field trip. So which decision are they going to choose? It's fairly obvious, right? So these students don't get to make that same ask. At the same time, these students, they don't see a path to higher education. I think from freshman year in some schools that are very privileged, the initial conversations about college start there.
Mm.
That like, where are we going to go? Why do you have to get good grades? Why the SAT and ACT? Why are these things so important? Because
Hmm.
it's about college. When you go to lower income school districts and you specifically hone in on this population, that's not their focus. They don't even understand why they should pay $30,000 to go to undergrad for 1 year, that when they can't even put food on the table at their house, like they see the value in working instead of going to
Right.
school. But the challenge is in 5-6 years they come back, they don't have the skills to be employed in a good job in our workforce, so then they're struggling in the same spot. So there's a huge mentality shift that we are battling against, and the core of all that problem is just this self-identification piece, that these students don't come forward when they do need help, and the times that they do, it's a very challenging process, and there has to be a sense of trust between the person they're sharing this information with and all that good stuff. So I mean, those were some of the few challenges that we started to notice when we were thinking about, okay, what programs are we going to build?
What were some of the conversations like after you talked to teachers, or you found students that were in this predicament? Like what's that like do they come to you, do you go to them? Like what's, like you said, I mean, are they ready? I'm sure they're not just like ready to go and tell you like all this stuff, right? Like you said, they're sort of they're not going to be willing to talk with anybody, right,
Mm-hmm.
about certain things. So like what is those conversations like when you find a student, right, that's in need? What's that first conversation like? And
Yeah, I mean, for our teachers, they want help. I mean, these
of
teachers,
course,
like,
yeah.
they want more organizations to be focusing on this population. So they were all open doors. I mean,
Oh, I'm
obviously, they
sure,
don't
yeah.
share information about specific students, but they really like, no teacher was hesitant to give us information. Like, they were telling, here's the real challenges, guys. Like, here's what you need to know. And what's interesting about that is I was a student at the time. everyone in the organization was a student at the time. It's like they're literally talking about kids that could have been in one of my classes.
Mm-hmm.
I just have no idea that this kid maybe that was sitting next to me in math class was having a completely different life than myself. So that was not a challenge as far as getting teachers to speak. And they really talk about experiences that they have with specific students. They opened up our eyes, because the thing is, like, I have never been a student in extreme poverty or homelessness. So therefore, I do not know about their experiences. So
Yeah, I meant like when you talk to the students, right? When you
yes,
went and got people into the program, right?
yes.
What is that like? What is those conversations like? Right? How does that happen?
Yeah. So the way that, for example, for our scholarship, so we have a scholarship that sends basically students in need to higher education if they need it. And basically they apply. We partner up with the Community College Foundation in Colorado. So those students apply through there. And the reason we have that partnership is because it is easier for those students to share that information with their
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
school instead of just this random nonprofit
Yeah,
that
for
says we're
sure.
going to
Right,
pay
right,
for
right,
your
right.
college. So we partner up with them. They send us the applications, and then really that breaks a huge barrier for us. And like, it's a lot more comfortable. And then when we have those, for example, those 5 students during Helping the Homeless Colorado that we
Yeah,
brought into our program, like because we're supporting them, it takes a while to build that relationship.
yeah,
So we set up phone calls, we talk about like, what are your challenges, like what can we be of help with right now. And at the beginning they're a little hesitant to share about everything
yeah,
going on, or still a little bit, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask for help. And then
yeah.
after a while, when they really realize that we're here to support them and that we're here to help them, they become more and more open. And some of our scholars are like literal rock stars. Like they, one, for example, she's a vet tech, she's working full time. All she needed was a little boost from us to get on the right track. The other transferred 1 year out of our scholarship to a full ride to a 4-year institution. I mean,
Yeah.
she was just completely set. She just needed 1 year of help. And then the other, she's one of ours, is still in our program, and we're still helping her out. She reaches out when she has struggles or whatever, and we try and get her connected with the right people. So it's really a relationship we have to build with those students.
What are the because I think what I was reading, there's sort of two, programs, or two sort of tiers within EEqual. Talk about those two, and I know we talked about a little bit about the scholarships, right? But I know there's
Yes.
more to it than just that, right?
So EEqual, we call it perform and inform. That's the 2 pillars of our organization. Perform is where we directly support the students we're trying to help. And then on the other side, inform is educating our general population. So people like me and you about this issue. So I'll start with perform. We have our scholarship, which basically sends students in poverty or homelessness to college at any one of our 39 partner institutions. So that scholarship happens every year. We get way too many applications.
Sure.
It's so challenging to narrow it down, but we narrow it down and we support those students specifically. In Perform, we also have something called the EEqual Experience Fund. So when I was talking before about that cost that every parent gets that check at the beginning of the year that they need to pay. So I was saying, these students miss out on that opportunity. They don't get that graphing calculator. They don't get that computer. They don't get to go on the field trip. So the EEqual Experience Fund is a micro grant program. Essentially, we say, we'll cover your computer costs, like a student who applies to our program, like your computer cost is covered. But in exchange, you're going to take a mini course and you're going to get paired up with a mentor that's going to show you the importance of higher education. We're going to help you get resources in your school, like get you signed up for free and reduced lunch, get you signed up for different resources that your school offers for a student in your position, because those resources aren't being used because these students are too afraid to come forward. So we help them out with that process. So it's essentially, we'll give you what you need to be successful in school, because no one's going to deny having a computer makes English class easier, right? Like we all get that.
Sure.
But on top of that, our real goal is that this student gets from point A to point B, which is, how do we get you on a path to higher education, whether that's community college, education certificates, trade school, vocational school, 4-year institutions. That's the goal with that program. And then with our the rest, it kind of ties into the inform part, and this last part of perform all tie into young people getting involved. So this next couple of months, we're going to be launching our chapters program, hopefully. And essentially, students create an EEqual club where they help distribute our programming. They help create social awareness campaigns in their school to really draw attention to the issue of student poverty and homelessness. And that should be something that can replicate around the nation, that schools all over, students can take the lead and say, you know what, this is an issue I care about. and here's how I'm going to help, whether it's I'm going to collect classroom supplies, I'm going to organize a mini campaign or rally in my school, I'm going to put up posters drawing attention to the issue. That's how that all ties in together. So there's a huge youth activism, youth leadership piece into the whole organization.
When you talk about, vocational schools and traditional college or community college or skills training, there's a lot of different paths to quote unquote higher education, right? Or the
Mm-hmm.
pathways to get out of sort of poverty. And one thing that I'm, really passionate about, and I don't know if you're aware of them, is sort of these coding boot camps.
Mm-hmm.
And using sort of technology to quickly
Yes.
train people, right, and get them into high paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's such an amazing opportunity that students have, right?
Yeah.
Especially coming from poverty and homelessness, even to say like you still have to go to a 4-year university, right? And you have to figure out what you want to do and all this stuff. And it's like, if a person really loves computers, right, at
Yeah.
18 or something like that, and they're like, you know what, I just want to be a web developer, right? Or I want
Yeah.
to do these, like maybe I don't want to go to a 4-year college because,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, maybe they're not
Not the
mentally
path for everyone.
yeah, maybe they're not mentally prepared to go on campus, right? And kind of
Yeah.
be in that hope that's a whole nother
Beast,
aspect
right?
of be right. You have to be socially aware, and like maybe a lot of people, like I'm socially kind of awkward, right? Like I don't like to be around a lot of people. So I think this is a major opportunity. I was wondering if maybe you're partnered with potential. Happy to introduce you to tons, man. But like, I think that's a really good opportunity to say,
Yeah.
hey, not only do we have community college, not only do we have traditional, we also have this, boot camp opportunity as well, right? We can go learn and train, and you can get a job in,
Yeah.
16 months. You're 19, 20 years old making 60, 70 grand. Like these
Yeah.
are real opportunities for people,
Yeah.
so I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, of course. So when we bring students into our scholarship program, we don't have a requirement of graduation. We don't have a specific degree you need to get. Essentially, we sit down together and you give us your academic goals. So if you really want to
Mm,
be a web
yeah.
developer, then Google offers so many, like they are looking for people like you. So it's like, we're not going to send you, it's no use for anyone here to try and spend the money to get you an associate's degree when that's what you want to do. So
Right.
let's get you on that path. So we are completely for any type of higher education, but our goal is there needs to be something, because the research shows that it's very, very challenging to get a good job with just a high school diploma.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying it's
100%.
impossible, right? But there
No,
needs to be
definitely.
some higher education in the mix. So whether that's, I'm going to go on even Coursera and take
Yeah.
that IT management course like that they
Yeah.
offer in that certificate and get to work, like if that's a $500 cost that EEqual can help out with, like why wouldn't we, right?
Right.
And if that's, some students come to us and they really do want to go to community college, or they really do want to go to a 4-year
Yeah,
institution,
absolutely.
then we can work on helping you out. But our goal is your academic goals. What do you want to get out of your education?
That's a
That's
really hard
obviously,
question though, right?
yeah.
For a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, like somebody would have asked me back, like I wouldn't have had any idea, right? Like I don't, so like what are some of the answers that you're given, right? Like
So what ends up, I mean, we do have some scholars. So what ends up happening is with the cycle of poverty, you have students who either they don't finish high school or they do graduate from high school, but then they don't go to any higher
yeah,
education. What happens is they go to work. So they think that
yeah,
they're going to get this job, whatever. And then in 5 years, they come back
yeah,
and say, I can't. I can't. So it's a lot of times our scholars are already in their 20s. So
yep,
they've kind of figured out a little bit.
yeah,
So they have more
sure,
direction. In theory, with the experience fund, with taking those kids in, providing whatever they need during public education, and then pairing up with that mentor,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
going to start those conversations a little bit earlier so that these students like on that brink aren't just like, oh my gosh, I have no idea yet, right? But we do have even a scholar right now who's just like, I changed, and we're
yeah,
happy to support you through that. We get it. Like everyone's going through change. I don't
sure,
even know what I'm going to study, right?
right,
So
right,
we get that flexibility, but a lot of times, if those confusions come from a place of not necessarily even knowing or even trying out what they want to do. So with our mentorship, like one of the things that we highly encourage is like, if you want to be a mechanic or if you want to do something like that, you should go shadow someone who's doing that.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
we get, the
No,
problem is we don't spend
yeah,
the time learning about what we want to do. So then we're just so
yeah.
confused. So it's the same that applies to this population. But the thing is, they don't have that kind of opportunity. They don't have someone who's pointing in them that direction. So our goal is to limit and like narrow it down. But yeah, we do support anyone, you know, if you have your educational goals, they shift, we get it. But the goal is like, how do we get you on your feet again? Like, how do we get you in a place that you don't need a charity to support you, that you can support your own family, that you have your own job, that you're on the right path and something like that. So we're very, very flexible. And like with all of these programs, we're working with real people. So this is all a relationship we have to build with these students. And this isn't a rubric. This isn't a clean cut, like whatever. It's like, that's why we put so much mentorship into all of our programs, because these guys really do need a friend in their corner. And we can't just put requirements on everyone because it's not going to work. Like these students are just like other students. They're all over the place, like trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. So that's why we emphasize a heavy relationship-based model with all of our programming. It's all about getting to know the student, helping them out on their specific journey.
We talked a lot about Colorado, right? And kind of where it all started. Now you're going to be moving, right? And so does now EEqual expand to the Boston area, right? Like what are plans now?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, because it's going to be tough for you to be there and kind of do everything in Colorado. So like I assume that you would love to open this up to cities where it's needed, right? So what does that look like now as you look toward the future of sort of the expansion of this idea across, you know, multiple cities?
Yeah, so that was one of the big things that we changed from helping the homeless to EEqual was like we were already limited to being Colorado and helping the homeless Colorado. So the goal is we want this to grow out of Colorado. You know, we want to do our piloting and our learning about the community and like figuring out our programs like fully here because we're more familiar with the area. But those chapters and those school clubs that I was talking about, like we want students in every state at every high school to create their own EEqual club because like why not? So that's how we first plan to expand it out. So even when I go to Boston, I would hopefully be in contact with more students that can maybe be interested in starting an EEqual club at their school. Even college like campus chapters at universities is definitely a possibility. And then at the same time, as the number of students and youth leaders who are like, yes, I'm the club president at like whatever Smoky Hill High School in Aurora or like whatever, that's how we're also going to be able to distribute all of these programmings, because once you're in the school, you're directly in the spot that the students who are struggling are going to be. So then those students at that club can start introducing this program to their counselors. They can start distributing it. Like one thing we have to remember with the education system is that it's exceptionally slow when it comes to change. Like the education system does not work fast. Like change is really, really hard, but it's a lot faster when you go the student route. So how much more inclined are you going to be how much more inclined are you going to be to listen to someone who's a leader in your school versus me coming out from getting on the phone with a counselor from California, trying to convince them that we have a scholarship that's going to work? Like that's not the effective model. The effective model is to get young people involved and then they become the voices for the organization. So it continues to expand to different states.
I want to go back to a little bit of your journey over this last year or just over high school. And was Harvard always the place you wanted to go to? Or what was that process like to actually, you know, apply and get accepted or get a scholarship? What was the path like to choose that university?
Yeah, so Harvard was really, really interesting for me because in middle school, I think I was always like, yeah, I want to go to Harvard. But it wasn't like a goal that I really actually thought of. I just kind of was like, yeah, I'm going to go to Harvard. And then, you know, around my freshman year of high school and sophomore year of high school, I wasn't thinking about college at all. In fact, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to like my state school here because like I love everything with helping the homeless. Like I don't know if I really want to move. Wasn't even thinking about it. I was the kid.
And Colorado's also epic.
Yes,
amazing place.
No, not a bad place at all. I love Colorado. Again, I'm here again for a year. So it was like I literally had no idea. I wasn't even thinking about college. Like I was the kid who like, they were like the ACTs next week. And I was like, oh my God, like, do I have to study for that or something?
Yeah.
So like, I was not paying attention to the college process until like the end of my junior year of high school, when some of my teachers were like, I hope you know that you are like a competitive candidate. I was like, what do you mean?
What do you
Like, I don't know what
mean?
you mean. And they're just like, like all the work you're doing with like helping the homeless and like your grades are like doing good. And it's like, are you considering like where you want to go? And they started to like put that in my mind a little bit more. And I was like, in my head, it was like, people who go to Harvard or whatever, like people who solve like world problems or something, like it's like
Right,
I'm
right.
not like I'm not Elon Musk, or I don't know, like I didn't create like this, like I'm just doing something. And so they kind of planted in my head, and then I thought more about it, and I was just like, wow, like actually maybe I should apply. And the application process was absolutely, I have a big problem with the college application process
Yeah, I
after
hear you.
learning about it.
I would imagine.
Yeah, right. So like then, at the end of my junior year, my teachers like kind of put it in my head, and I started thinking more about it. And then I started doing more research about different schools, and I started to create lists and like really trying to find where would be a good fit. And Harvard was like, yeah, I guess it was the middle school dream. So I should just put it on there. Like, why not?
Yeah.
And then around the fall of my senior year of high school, it's when everyone starts applying. And I started writing, and like the writing was such a challenging part, like writing essays and writing
Yeah.
about myself was really hard for me, because when it comes to writing about equal, I love it. Like I can write
Sure.
about
Yeah.
anything with equal
Right.
as long as you want. But when it comes to like me and equal, I was like, okay, I'm not entirely sure how to go about this. So it was a really, really challenging process. And it was one of those things that I became more invested in it as I learned more about like the process itself. So, you asked me a year ago, like my fall of my junior year of high school, I probably didn't really care about the college process. And then like senior year, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I got to get going, and I got to learn about how I'm going to write these essays, and have like my closest allies, like my teachers or whatever, read through them and help me
Right.
edit them. So it was a really, really long process. But I guess if anyone listening is curious, I just think when you read all those blogs, and when you read everyone saying like, I think admissions officers are genuinely trying to get to know the candidate, I actually really believe that. Like my SAT and ACT score was nowhere near where like all
Yeah.
these Harvard students will be going. Like I think I'm in like the lower like 20% or whatever. I was like probably at one of the lower scores in the class, but that's fine, right? Because we're all in the same spot. And I think it was just really writing honestly and authentically about myself, what I've learned throughout the years, what I want to do in the future. And like, helping the homeless Colorado is a part of that, but not the whole point.
Of course. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to tell more about the college process, but
So I usually like to end a little bit on the future,
yeah,
and I know, it's always tough to talk about the future, especially right now. But
yeah,
I think, just from our conversation, you kind of, learned to sit down and do that a little bit, right? You did that kind of
right,
with EEqual, right? You said, look, I think that if we really want to do this, we have to sit down and look at a sustainable way to build
sure,
out an impactful organization, right? So I guess let's say, over the next 5 years, right, when you sort of, graduate and leave Harvard, what are some of the successes and goals that, you'd want to accomplish, for EEqual, maybe personally as well, but like, do you sit down and start to think about those things right now, and what are those things look like?
yeah. I mean, the future is like always in my mind right now, because I don't know, for some reason I feel like I'm getting like super old, because I use like throughout the years I would tell the story, right? I'd be like, I'm 14, and then it became I'm 15, and then I'm 16, and now I'm like, okay, I'm 18. And I know I'm not like super old or
Yeah,
whatever, right? But it's just like, oh my gosh, like I can't pull like I'm a middle schooler anymore. Like that doesn't
right,
work. Now I'm a student in college, right? So for EEqual specifically, in 5 years, I hope that first of all, the leadership of the organization is so there that it's like it doesn't even
hmm,
need me anymore
right,
to
right,
like have it last. Like I know there's millions of passionate student leaders out there who just want to do something positive. And I hope if anyone's listening who's like that, like you reach out to me, and we'll get you in the organization. But like I don't want it to be something that is completely dependent on me, and that's why I'm really giving this time this year to help build out strong roles, to help build out strong leaders who can take parts of the
right,
organization over.
right,
But I hope as far as vision that we are in a ton of campus chapters like that. We have students across the nation who are hosting their own equal clubs that are passionate about fighting for education equality, that our scholarship is supporting more and more students every single year, and that those students not only are off their feet now, that they're on their own, that we were able to help them really make a difference in their life, but they're coming back and supporting the students who are struggling right now as a mentor or something like that, right? That they're giving back to the same community. And I hope that that the programs of Equal, like I know they're really strong, and I hope that they start really impacting a lot of people's lives. But my real core vision is just like young people, like young, passionate leaders are taking the lead, because I was in the same position 4 years ago when I would go pitch to a business that like I have a nonprofit, like people would laugh at me, like they wouldn't
Yeah.
take me seriously. Like, why should I give this eighth grader $500 and whatever? So it's like, I hope Equal becomes a real testament to like how powerful youth can be. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're a youth-led nonprofit. Yeah, we don't have full-time employees, but we have some really, really strong team members and leaders across the nation who are pulling the organization forward. And like, I mean, I could go on a whole thing about like the importance of Gen Z, because when it comes to our social media and our
Yeah,
content creation, like, I'm sorry, but I think we do it a lot better than a lot of
for sure.
organizations
For
out
sure.
there. And for
100%.
some reason, we still don't get a seat at the table, which is very frustrating. But like, I hope that it really shows people in society that how powerful like youth movements and youth involvement in social action can really be.
Amazing, man. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. And man, you've already accomplished so much, man, at such a young age. So, whatever has inspired you up to this point, and whatever your mental thought process is like, keep doing it, man. It's
Thank you. Yes.
it's taking you down. I'm telling you, man. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
They like you said. I mean, you kind of took a chance early on and just did what you wanted to do, right? And not no shame in standing outside asking for money
Right.
for your organization, right? But like that's hard to do,
Yeah.
and it might not seem that way because you like to do it, enjoy to do it, but that takes a certain kind of person with a certain kind of
Right.
drive. So keep staying motivated, man. Keep building out the team, the
Yeah.
organizations,
Thank
and the
you.
programs, and just keep grinding, man. And
Yes,
best of
for
luck to
sure.
you, and tell the team thank you, and just keep crushing it,
Yes.
man.
All right. Yeah, we will be doing that. And thank you so much for bringing me on. It was a lot of fun. Always love sharing. And if anyone's listening, wants to learn more about Equal, like never be afraid to reach out. Or if you want to start your own initiative of